What's going on, everybody? Today we're in beautiful Florida. I'm home, and I've decided to get myself into some trouble today. We're gonna be changing out finally the water pump, and also my charged air cooler, my air to air, whatever they call it these days. Pretty much cools down the air from the turbo, right? It's leaking pretty bad, and it's causing my turbo to overspin. So we're gonna be changing it out, and we're gonna be slapping another snail on the side of the engine as well. I already took the truck to a local shop to get the Freon emptied out of the. One second, we got a ghetto bird flying up above. I already took the truck to a local shop to get the Freon vacuumed out. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with W900s. The AC condenser sits in front of the charged air cooler, right? But on W900s, you have a line that goes in down here and another one that goes in on the top on the opposite side. So you can't just loosen it and fling it over like you can on like a Peterbilt or I think the Freightliner Classics you could do that as well, but I'm not too sure on those. But I know on Peterbilts people loosen the condenser and they fling it over or they hang it over. In my truck you got to take it off. So I already got the Freon emptied out. We're gonna start getting our tools out and get to work. All right, so quick correction. The lines for the condenser on the AC condenser, so they're on the same side. They're not on opposite sides, but you got one on the top, one on the bottom. So it makes it difficult. Obviously, you can't fling it over, and I'll show you my lines now in a second. You can't fling it out to the left of the truck. Also, to remove the CAC, the charged air cooler, you have to remove this like air shroud, and the bolts, they might, let me see if focus is here, they might spin on you. So what I'm gonna do is I got me a nice flathead that can fit in there flush, and we're gonna keep it from spinning on us as we take the nut off on the other side. These are my lines here. Let me see my AC line, but the other one, the top one, it doesn't really let you fling it to the left, so you have to uncouple it anyway. No big deal. They charged me 30 bucks to empty out the system, probably another 100 to put Freon back in, and it's summer, so probably should be topping off the Freon anyway. All right, let's get to it. All right, so we took off the shroud in front of the charged air cooler. We took off all the piping, the air piping, and I moved the AC line. Now if you see overspinning the turbo, it'll start spitting out oil, and you see how bad the leak was on the cack, where it was spitting it out in the front. And the backside, all of that is oil. I think this is what caused my initial turbo failure a few months back, and all that turbo ordeal I had to go through. So we just gotta take 1, 2, and then 2 off on the other side, so 4 bolts, and then we'll be able to pull it out. All right, let's get to it. So I don't know if you guys just saw that. I don't think you realize how hard it is to change this ball of metal by yourself. I definitely recommend, if you're gonna do it, have somebody to help you shimmy it out. Because if you think taking it out was hard, I'm sure putting the new one back on, it's gonna be even worse. I'm gonna spray this down with some brake cleaner, try to clean it up as much as possible, and we'll slap on the new one. I'm out of breath. I feel like I run a marathon. Sheesh. I think it's harder too, because I try to step in certain places where I'm not necessarily gonna crack my hood or bend my grill or cause damage. This here is a cooler it's a diesel cooler. It cools down my diesel, and it cools down my power steering fluid. But I had got a leak in my power steering fluid a while back, and I disconnected it from the cooler. And I think eventually I'm gonna bypass the fuel as well and just get rid of this thing. It's all beat up. I'm scared eventually it's gonna start leaking diesel or something. Look at that. It's definitely seen better days. Show you guys the other side. So as you can see, I disconnected the return for the power steering, and the feed, I took it off, and I have like a closed loop system, no cooler. So all I have left are the fuel lines right here. So I think I'm gonna do away with that sometime in the near future. I don't know, I'll see. I might look into it, get another one, or I might just delete it. So, yep. You see the turbo was starting to pass oil into the intake. Yeah, it was passing oil already. And it's a brand new turbo. It's only about a month or so old. So next we're gonna take off the turbo, show you guys how easy it is. And the upside of having one of these, where when I slap the other one on, I don't have to reprogram it or do any of that foolishness. All right, let's get to it, guys. All right, guys. So taking off one of these turbos is fairly straightforward. You know, I've always felt like if you're gonna be an owner operator, you gotta have the will to want to get your hands dirty. You know, most of this stuff is mechanical work. To me, is easy. Most of it, you know, it's just changing parts. The hard part, where the real mechanics come in handy, or when you got to diagnose something, you know. But if you already know what's wrong, like turbo's bad, charger cooler's bad, changing things, yeah, it's a little labor intensive, but for the most part, it's usually just changing parts out, you know. Man, you'd think I know these sizes by heart already. There we go. So as you can see, it's all nuts and bolts. Yeah, I might need a new one of these. Look at this. The turbo gasket. Look at this. I need a new turbo gasket. Okay, so what I just got done doing was I took off the boot from that comes from the air filters, right? And I took off the downpipe. So now I'm gonna take off the oil feed line. And for this you need 2 wrenches. You need one, a 22 and a 19. Now, I haven't invested in getting the connector that, let me see here, focus. I haven't invested in getting the connector that attaches to this bolt here. There's another one back here. It's like a little oval thing, and this fits on that. I pretty much just put an adapter, right, to fit into the center hole. Show you guys. Put that off to the side somewhere back there, right? A second here, bear with me. I'm trying to film, and so I'm gonna show y'all a trick. Can't think and speak at the same time. All right, You stand up your wrench like that. You put a screwdriver and then you break everything. Give me a second, I need 2 hands. There we go. See, it works. Just with 2 hands. See the little adapter? Now the hardest part of this whole thing is taking the oil return line off. Alright, let's get to it. What's this, an 11? I think that bolt's a 10 to 12. Correction, it's a 13. Now, I'll be honest with you. Having power tools, game changer. You could do all of this stuff by hand, but it takes longer. You're gonna get frustrated when things don't loosen up. So, if you take any advice from me, take this one, power tool. You don't need a lot. I got a electric impact wrench and an electric impact gun. Obviously wireless, right? You want batteries, so I take them out on the road with me. I got the charger in the truck, so now I'm gonna show you why the hardest part of taking the turbo off is the oil return line. The bolt that holds it up in the back, it's a pain in the butt to get to. Now, I'm pretty sure there's gotta be an easier way of doing this, but I haven't found it. Any mechanics out there want to chime in after you're done laughing, feel free. This thing is like, you ever heard of Chinese water torture? That's what I feel like this is. I loosen it up half a quarter turn at a time. Please, guys, if there's any mechanics out there, feel free to chime in. I know there's an easier way to do it, right? But I haven't found it yet. All right. Okay, I remember they're 15s. So come on, buddy. always a problematic child. So the way you do it is, I know a lot of you guys know, but when you want to gain more leverage, you put the female side in, right? And on the male side, the way you're pulling, that's the way you lock. So if you were tightening, it'd be like this, right? If you're loosening, you want the ring on the outside. Always the ring on the outside. What kind of bird was that? It sounded like a deaf bird. Can't hear itself cooing. All right, so we have side by side. This is the OEM one, and then I got this one from Northern Radiator. I bought it through Momentum Works. I believe they're out in PA. So I just went on their site, and then I got, I think it's the 2008 and newer. I don't know. You go in there. They have Peterbilt and Kenworth charge air coolers. So yeah, we're gonna try it out. This ain't the fancy one with the rubber here on the edges and stuff like that, but it'll do. It'll do. We're not quite pushing out crazy horsepower anyway. You know, we're just trying to work. We're just trying to work. All right. Now the fun part begins, slapping it on. Let's see. You guys won't believe all I had to do to get the new air to air cooler on there. So what they don't tell you is the Northern Radiator one is slightly narrower than the OEM one. So the OEM one, you can shimmy it, right? You got to put it in at an angle and it'll fit. This one, I had to take off all the hood support, like the hood spring and the hood support brackets on both sides, and I had to remove the coolant tank so I could just, you know, throw it back and pretty much crown the new charged air cooler over my radiator, because there was no way I could shimmy it in there. Like, mind you, I'm by myself also, so I had to cut short the time lapse I was taking of everything, because I called a really good friend of mine. He's happens to be also my mechanic. Anytime I need to do something to the truck that, you know, it's out of my depth, usually around the motor or something that's just gonna give me too much pain, I take it to him. Guy is like a Cummings doctor. He's also pretty good with Series 60s. And anyway, I called him. You know, I spoke with him for a little bit, and pretty much the game plan was to remove everything and just like let the new charged air cooler slide down around the radiator from the top. I got the hood resting on buckets. See, thankfully I have 2 buckets, which I'm gonna use to empty out the coolant to change the water pump. I got everything on the charged air cooler put back on. I got my coolant overflow tank back on. I got to put on the AC compressor, and I transferred over all these little bolts that are going to be holding that shroud and the AC compressor. I'm missing a few though. I didn't lose them. They were missing today when I was taking them off. So somewhere in the future I gotta take that off and run to a hardware store and get all new. I'll probably do like all new stainless steel ones. But yeah, y'all ever seen the movie Odyssey? I feel like I just went through an Odyssey right now, trying to put that thing on by myself. Guys, if you're gonna change this by yourself, it's not for the weak of mind or weak of heart. You gotta have some determination, man. This thing was a pain in the butt. All right, let's keep on going. All right, guys, I went ahead and I bought new studs, because the old ones were they were seized up. So the way I put them on is I double nut the stud, right, and I put some anti-seize on it. Once you finish putting on the turbo, it's going to tighten it down anyways, but the double nut allows you to not tighten the nut as you're tightening on, right, as you're putting on the lug onto the exhaust manifold. See? My bad, y'all. There we go. Now the trick is you got to do the bottom one, right? Because that's the one pushing on the top one. If you do the top one, you risk tightening the top one, which is what you're trying to avoid in the first place. You could also get some vice grips and put it on the middle and turn it, but you know, I don't want to score them right now. They're brand new, so we're gonna be bougie about it. There we go. That boy's in. See that? Like a pro. Now the reason I'm smushing it is because when I start wrestling with the turbo and putting it on here, I don't want it to knock down the big glop of anti-seize before I put the nuts on. Alright guys, the turbo I got this time is Zeki Turbo. They're out of Doral, Florida. If you haven't heard about them, look them up. I've heard a lot of good things about them, and they're pretty reasonably priced. This is their version of the Borg-Warner 410 or S410SX, I believe is the proper way to call it. So it's a step up from my S400 that I had on. I'm gonna take it out. We'll put them side by side and we'll compare. So as you can see, there's a noticeable difference. I still retain the V-band right here, but the snout for the elbow it's a lot bigger. I believe it's slightly wider too. This is a 78. It's a billet wheel. Double bladed, not single. This is double bladed as well, but it's not billet. This is cast wheel. 75 on the compressor side. This one is 78, so not that much of a difference. I still have 1.32 AR, I believe is what it's called, on the exhaust housing, so it's gonna spool up fairly at the same speed. This does have a 360 thrust bearing on it, so you get a bit more protection against that forward backwards play. This is, I believe, 180. This one's 360. I'm not quite sure what this one is. Don't quote me. I'm not a turbo guy. I'm just a driver. But yeah, Zeki Turbos, guys. Zeki Turbos. Look them up. I've heard good things about them, so I decided to try it out now, since I'm switching turbos again. I don't know if you guys can see it in there. That billet. It cuts from the billet machine. See the striations? It's not, you know, it's not that big of a thing, but it is a little step up. And if I ever wanted to put like a speed sensor, I believe is what it's called, I just tap these holes. They're not drilled all the way through. I would have to tap them and install the sensor. Non-wastegated, guys, because real idiots and real men have non-wastegated turbos. I don't know which one you guys identify with, but yeah, non-wastegated. What's going on, guys? So it's the next day. I left off talking about the differences between one turbo and the other. Got the new turbo put on. Some things to keep in mind, to consider when you go from an S400 up to a S410SX, whether it's Borg-Warner or Zeki, or you get the I believe it's the full tilt turbo. Whenever you step up, you got to consider that the oil return line is longer on the S400 frame, being that the turbo housing is shorter on the S400. This one having a a wider turbo housing, you gotta finesse the oil return line in there. Also, the bolt is a 3/8 by 16, and it's the same length as the ones on the S400, but you want to make sure you get a 3/8 by 16, so you get the right thread. I believe it's the 3/8 with the coarser thread, not the fine thread. Other than that, we're tackling the water pump. I have the old one right here. So it happened to be leaking, I'm guessing somewhere here, because you see all the dried coolant residue. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. So it was leaking in between the pulley and the actual housing. See, from in here, that's where it was leaking from. I have the new one right here. It's a reman. At the time I bought it, I don't know if you guys seen my previous videos, I bought it out in Texas, in Laredo. All they had was reman. I'm sorry, it was San Antonio. I was on my way to Laredo, but all they had was a reman. It'll do. To get it out, you have to do a little bit of finessing as well. And the reason being is, as you notice, I had to take my alternator and fling it to the side. I have it resting there on the bolt for my shock, for my shock absorber, and on the ABS thing, because I don't like to put all that pressure on the wires. But I had to take my alternator off, and I started off with a medium-sized flathead screwdriver, so I was wedging it, right? And then I used a bigger one, and I excuse me, I drove it in on all four corners, and that seemed to push it out enough for me to be able to wiggle it out. The amount of surface that makes contact is not that much. It's this right here, but trust me, it gets pretty stuck. As far as the bolts go, it wasn't that hard. I had a breaker bar, my electric impact wrench checked out after all the turbo and cack work, so I just used the breaker bar. I broke all four loose, and then with a wrench I wrenched them out. For the two on the inside, right? The two back here, I got under the truck, and I got to them fairly easy. So I just got done spraying the bolts with some of this stuff, and then I'm gonna put anti-seize on them before I put them back in. Now I'm just looking at the best plan of attack as far as getting the new one in without dinging it up, because it's tight spacing. I could take the pulley off, do it that way, but we'll see. The old one, I got it out from the bottom and I let it drop. We'll see. I'll keep y'all tuned in. What's going on, guys? So I never filmed an ending to the video, the massive video that I did about the charged air cooler, the turbo, the water pump. I never did an ending to it because I was working outside in the hot sun trying to figure things out, and I'll be honest, I forgot to film the later parts of it. But you guys got a good idea of what goes into working on your own truck and the things you have to do to fix the things that I addressed. It's been, I want to say 2 days later. I went on a trip. The truck's been acting fine. My boost is now, with the previous turbo, my boost was getting up to like 40 pounds. And then when I started having the charge air cooler issues, it would go up to like 38, you know, but you could feel the truck just struggling to keep it there, to get there. So I would never let it get past 30. But now it goes past 40. I'm guessing it's like somewhere in like the 43, 45 range. I never personally let the boost get that high, whether I'm climbing a hill or getting on the truck a bit. I never let it get that high for more than a couple seconds maybe, because you know you gotta work with your engine. My engine is, I don't know when it was the last time that it was tampered with, so you know I don't know the durability of like my head gasket or it's just things, you know. So you gotta work with your engine as well. You don't need to keep your truck at, you know, 43 pounds of boost for 20 minutes, you know, non-stop. There's no need for that. With 30 pounds of boost, I got more than enough than what I need to do anything, really. So unfortunately I can't turn the music up, because with previous videos I've had like copyright issues and whatnot. So no music. You guys are just gonna have to listen to the truck and maybe some CB chatter. We're in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and we're headed to the coast, the eastern coast in South Carolina. I don't know the name of the town specifically. Rock Barrow, Hinderburg, something Barrow. But we're headed out east, and I'll use this pretty much as a closure for that video. Super long. I might, by the time you see this might be the second video on a 2-part series, or it might just be one whole thing. I don't know. I'll see how I decide to put it out. Let's get to it, guys. Let's get to it. I also got into the straitjacket mess of installing glass lights on the truck. That's another reason as to why it took me a little longer to work on the truck than I intended, and why I forgot that really the glass lights gave me more headache than actual like water pump, charge air cooler, turbo stuff. I had to take out rivet nuts, put new rivet nuts in. Let me tell you something. If you have one of those like squeeze rivet nut gun things, it's a total pain in the neck, man. Come on now, don't make me look bad. My suggestion is, if you're gonna be putting a lot of rivet nuts in, you need to get one of those the air compressor ones. I'm sorry guys, y'all gotta bear with me while I learn to drive a manual. I don't know what it is. It's probably because I'm still developing as a driver. Man, I can go 3 whole weeks floating gears like a champ. All of a sudden, I can't even put reverse in without grinding something, you know? Obviously, I'm not grinding it like an 8, you know? But I consider grinding gears that little click, 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 click. I don't know if the camera picks it up or not, but to me that's grinding gears, right? I kid you not, when you float a gear and get perfect timing, it's like the transmission is pulling on the shift stick. I don't consider it floating. I consider it scratching, grinding, whatnot. But as you can see, everybody wants a 13, 18 speed transmission. But what people fail to realize is you don't really, as a truck driver, you don't really shift all that much, really, unless you're like a local driver. But OTR, you shift, you make it look cool, you make it sound cool, and then you get on the road and you go to cruise control. No more shifting. Obviously, I wouldn't trade my 18 speed for the world, but for one, I drive it like a 13, 99% of the time I drive it like a 13 speed, and for two, I don't even really use it that much, so you get good at it, and then you don't have to use it. It's like school. You learn all the stuff, and then you don't really use it. You have the knowledge. Hopefully you retain it, but you don't really use it. Anyway, that's enough of that. You guys let me know in the comment section. Does that ever happen to you guys? You go a whole month, 2 months floating like a 40-year veteran, floating gears like a stud, and then man, you get that one day you just can't put one in. You can't put one in. You gotta keep double revving. You gotta keep lifting the RPMs to place it in. You gotta. It's a mess. It's a mess. Shame on the mess. Going back on down a little bit. Sometimes I drive like a grandpa. Look at the lights, guys. Let me tell you something. I might not be able to fully enjoy them from inside the truck, but they look nice, man. They look nice. They light up really nice.